Hello and welcome to a special Hanukkah edition of Talking Tropes. I'm your host, Hanukkah.
And I'm your other host, Dave a Kid. And today we're talking about the oft forgotten December holiday specials, the kind that don't really exist anymore, the Hanukkah TV
Yeah.
specials. That they're sort of this weird encapsulation of the multiculturalism of the late 90s and early 2000s. This push to not have television be so dominated by Christmas as this cultural phenomenon. And now we're back to everything's Christmas. I mean, the Hallmark movies have truly taken
Yeah.
over, and now they're on Netflix and they're on, NBC, and they're on all of these other places. There's no escaping. The
Yeah.
Hallmark movie has, in fact, I think, become sort of the main way that we experience time now. The It's our main way of processing the passage of time is through Hallmark specials. But there was
Yeah.
a time where there was this push to include others besides the goys. There was a push to include some Jewish voices, maybe, and there was all of your
Yeah.
Kwanzaa episodes happened during this time period, and any episodes celebrating, oh, we're all celebrating different things on this holiday. They all sort of happen during this time, and there's still, of course, different ways of interpreting Christmas, and those still appear on television. But the age of the Hanukkah episode, I think, is pretty much done.
Yeah, which is it's strange, you would think that in 2020 when, wokeness and inclusion are the liberal agenda that's being shoved down everyone's throat, that you would see maybe more of this, and maybe people talking about Muslim holidays and Diwali and
Right.
other
Well, I think
cultures,
this is
but no, it's just
precisely
Christmas.
Well, I think this is precisely like the cultural evolution that we've experienced, and it happened in a very short amount of time. But the sort of realization is,
Yeah.
you go, hey, why is it that during the month of December, everyone is only talking about Christmas? And then you have the second level realization about halfway through where it's like, wait, why should we turn Hanukkah into Jew Christmas? That doesn't make any sense either. Hanukkah has nothing to do with Christmas, and it only sometimes falls within, a couple weeks of Christmas anyway. And then there's all these other holidays that sort of sometimes happen in December, but not always. And then, the atheists, of course, will always try and get in on it and say something like, oh, we're going to celebrate the birth of Isaac Newton on Newtonmas. But it's all just still reinforcing that Christmas is the most important cultural holiday in the Western world. And that's, so it doesn't actually challenge anything to celebrate Hanukkah like it was Christmas.
Right. And it's interesting to talk about celebrating Hanukkah like it's Christmas, especially in the context of these Hanukkah specials that we're going to talk about, because I think, one of the major takeaways that you're going to sort of see is that basically Hanukkah only exists kind of, with very rare exceptions, within this bubble of how it relates to Christmas. Like,
Right.
it's very rare to have a purely just Hanukkah focused episode.
Yeah. I mean, to start with like a little bit of like prehistory, like before the dawn of the Hanukkah episode, you had sometimes had Jewish characters in sitcoms, but they would always downplay their Jewishness a lot. The first like Jewish family on television was right at the beginning, the Goldbergs. And they came from radio, where ethnic drama was like, and ethnic sitcoms were kind of the whole deal. And then after that, you don't really get another Jewish-led sitcom until like Rhoda in 1974.
Okay.
And so they would have holiday episodes, but she would just say, I'm going holiday shopping. And she would just sort of subtly leave out any mention of Christmas or Hanukkah. So
right. Like, there's never any forefronting of Hanukkah. It's always just a like lame inclusion of the fact that there's more than one holiday that exists right now.
Just I'm going holiday shopping. It's the holidays, by which we all know she really means it's Christmas time. And then there's some other, hop-ons.
Yeah. The thing the Jews do, whatever that is.
Right. And then I think everything really starts to change with SNL, which had, of course, a large Jewish cast, and a lot of Jews who like Jewish humor, which is just humor with the word Jew slapped on it. And so thus comes Hanukkah Harry, the sketch starring John Lovitz, where he presents himself as an alternative to Santa Claus for the Jews. And he's a Jewish stereotype. And he comes into the house and he gives Hanukkah-style presents. So there's this aligning of Christmas and Hanukkah again. Hanukkah Harry has to save the day because Santa is sick, but he brings the Jewish kind of presents. We have 8 days of presents, but we only get socks and sweaters and boring gifts, whereas the Gentiles get toys and magic and lots of fun things. And then after that, you have another SNL sketch, right?
Yes.
This iconic Hanukkah sketch.
I think it's the only Hanukkah song that people know of, probably, besides like Dreidel, Dreidel, Dreidel. And it's the Adam Sandler Hanukkah song, 8 Crazy Nights, which would eventually later inspire the very terrible movie that we'll talk about eventually.
Right. I mean, it has the line 8 Crazy Nights, but
that's right. It's just the Hanukkah song, right?
The Hanukkah song.
Yeah.
Where the joke is there's no good songs for Hanukkah. That's the joke. And so here's another bad song, I guess. That's the only way that I understand the joke. Because he's just listing celebrity names that happen to have some Jewish ancestry in a loose rhyming scheme to absolutely no melody. And that's the Hanukkah song.
But it's the only Hanukkah song that I've ever heard played on the radio. I'll say that.
Well, I think part of it is just that, like, Jewish songs of celebration sound too Jewish. They're not for like mass consumption. I mean, I think Hanukkah, oh Hanukkah, I think that's like a great song, or Sivivon, or there are other songs, but they're too klezmery, they're too ethnic. You can't play them for a mass audience.
Too Jewish.
The only ethnically specific holiday song that gets played on the radio is like the Christmas donkey song, and that one might even be racist. I don't even know.
Yeah. Well, there's Feliz Navidad,
Feliz Navidad, yeah. That's another one. But yeah, I guess I just don't think you want to like broadcast too Jewy of songs. Could you make it a little more secular, a little more American, a little more mass consumption? And so that's what Adam Sandler is.
Absolutely.
He's mass consumption.
Right. And he literally made a song that is just about Hanukkah, but really it's just about people who are vaguely Jewish, and it's celebrity,
and the fact
it's celebrity
that
culture.
Jews feel left out during Christmas time.
Right.
And that's the running theme through all of these television representations that we're going to see. The first of which is, of course, the iconic Rugrats Hanukkah episode, 1996. I mean, this is all we had. You have to understand, like, we were kids. This is all that existed. And we watched it. We had it on VHS. We watched it every year, pretty much, for the first, 10 years of my life. And it was a big part of Jewish identity, was that there was this one show where the lead character was Jewish on his mother's side. He's it's an interfaith family, as will be the trend for almost every episode on this list. But he celebrates, he lights candles, and he's got, these really ethnically specific grandparents. Boris and Minka was Bobby Minka's name. But yeah, so he's got these really, old world Russian Jewish grandparents, Russian Jewish grandparents, So that gives us this portal into telling ancient Bible stories through the Rugrats, which I'm sure
Right.
Christians love too, for at least for the Passover one, or
Right.
maybe some of the other episodes. But I mean, Hanukkah is very specifically Jewish. It's after the point at which Christians stop caring about, Jewish history.
Right. But it's interesting because this really does start the trend of, we have this main character who, their last name isn't Goldstein. So how could they possibly be Jewish? It's their mom. Their mom is
Well,
Jewish.
Pickles to me sounds like a very
I know.
Jewish last name.
Pickles
So
has
it's not a
always
great
sounded,
example.
I know it's not, but I think that's a large part of why we tend to see it being passed down on the mother's side, besides the Jewish tradition that if your mother is Jewish, then you're a real Jew, quote unquote, whatever.
Right. I think it's more of that. It's like, well, we only need one Jewish character to make this character be able to celebrate this holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
And we don't have to, walk on eggshells when we have another episode that's a Christmas episode.
Right.
And say like, oh, well, this character wouldn't celebrate Christmas or wouldn't have a Christmas tree or wouldn't write a letter to Santa or whatever. No,
exactly.
they can do it all. There's the tokenism of the mother or the grandmother on the mother's side, lets us get away with a lot in these episodes. So what actually happens in the Rugrats episode? How do they do it?
It starts off with Grandpa Boris reading them the beginnings of the Hanukkah story at home as they prepare and make latkes to go to synagogue, or is it the synagogue or is it the retirement center?
It's the Cinema Bob, Hannah. The Cinema Bob.
The Cinema Bob, excuse me. But so, they go to see their grandparents basically put on a play. And it's very adorable. I wish there was more of that when we were kids, and less our grandparents being like, why don't you guys put on a play? Like, no, grandma, why don't you put on a play? Let's see you dress up in a wig.
What about you?
But so, they get confused about the meaning of Hanukkah and mishear it as the meanie of Hanukkah. And they think there's someone bullying their grandpa, and so,
which in a sense there kind of is. Grandpa Boris has this old friend named Shlomo, who is sort of this businessman who's always holding it over Boris. I've got this great business, and the critics love my performance as King Antiochus, and I'm so much better than you. And then Boris is like, oh yeah, well, you don't have any kids or grandkids, so you're sad and lonely. But it turns out in the end that he was sad and lonely. And then Grandpa Boris is like, oops,
I feel bad.
I've screwed up. And so then he sort of shares his grandkids with Shlomo.
Right.
But,
meanwhile,
but that's
Angelica,
just the adults plot.
Right. So Angelica is from Tommy's, he's his dad's side cousin, which is not Jewish. So she's just trying to watch the Cynthia Christmas special the entire time. But even Angelica learns the meaning of Hanukkah, which is, it's the little guy standing up to the big, mighty, powerful, and the miracle of the oil lasting for 8 nights. And,
is that the message? Always... The standing up to someone bigger and stronger than you? Is that what she learns?
Yeah. Well, no, she doesn't learn that, but, she's like,
it's just sort of like she learns that there are other stories besides the Christmas stories on TV. There's also old men reading to you from ancient books, stories, which can be good stories. And I think the Hanukkah story at its core is a pretty simple and easy to understand one. It's Star Wars. It's there's the big army, and then there's the little army of rebels, and then the little army of rebels meets the big army, and the historical truth of it isn't that important. We kind of push that to the side. And then it becomes this thing of, I don't know, when it's being promoted in the early days, it sort of becomes this Zionist thing of like, we were protecting our homeland from invaders and trying to establish the historical record of Jews being in Jerusalem.
Fighting
But
for
that's
Israel.
it's a whole other story. And then after the Holocaust, it becomes this whole thing, this like allegory for religious freedom, which is not really what the story was about. It wasn't about religious freedom so much as just Jewish self, Jewish ownership of the homeland. So I don't know. The meaning changes with the ages, but I think as of
but
now,
I think the miracle aspect is
right.
sort of the reason why we celebrated in the first part, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah. The miracle thing, I think, becomes how we narrativize it today, is that it's like a time where God can do things that are slightly miraculous, but not that miraculous.
Right.
More or less just keeping things on that should be switched off. We'll see a few examples of that.
They're great. They're great guys. Just, they're so good.
But, in this case, really it all just comes down to family, and of course Stu Pickles tries to build a giant robot menorah that explodes.
Yeah,
so that's the story.
That's Rugrats Hanukkah. It's great. Go watch it. You can find it online in various places. What's next on our Hanukkah special tour?
Right. I mean, there are other episodes that just sort of mention Hanukkah, like briefly. I think Seinfeld is maybe the one that we'll bring up from that category, because I think it has thematic resonance outside of that.
Sure.
In the Seinfeld season 9 episode of The Strike, it opens at a Hanukkah party hosted by Tim Watley, otherwise known as Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
And he was like the dentist who converted to Judaism for the jokes. Everyone knows this episode, right? At least all the Jews who I assume are listening to this to this podcast.
I mean, I know very little about Seinfeld beyond like the top level, and I did not know that
right. Well,
that's
his character.
Was.
Is he's the dentist? He converts to Judaism, and then Jerry Seinfeld tells a dentist themed joke, and Kramer calls him an anti-dentite. That's a different episode.
Oh my God.
In this episode, this is the one where we get introduced to Festivus, which is George Costanza's father, played by, a Jewish actor, played by Stiller. What's his first name?
Ben Stiller's dad.
Yeah, Jerry Stiller. Take that again. So George Costanza's dad, played by Jerry Stiller, has created this holiday against against the religious aspects of Christmas, and also against the commercialism. Yeah. So this is like something slightly unique about this episode, is that a lot of episodes talk about being like against the commercialism of the holiday, but this one's also against the religiousness of the holiday, the specifically Christian nature of the holiday. And so he creates Festivus, which removes all of the flair of Christmas. Instead of a tree, you have an aluminum pole. Instead of exchanging gifts, you exchange grievances, which is, to me, seems very Jewish.
Yeah.
And you have the feats of strength, where your dad tackles you to the ground, and you can't
it doesn't end until you pin him. Yeah. It's very ridiculous.
Right. So, but I mean, the idea of like a new holiday being invented to confront Christmas, I think, is something very thematically resonant with these episodes. Which is why, even though it only has that one mention of Hanukkah in the beginning, I still think it's worth bringing.
Yeah.
Right, what's the next
also
one?
I mean, also from, that sort of late 90s time period, we get The Nanny, Fran Drescher, just coming in. Yes, Mr.
Another
Sheffield.
interfaith marriage.
It's the first night of Hanukkah, and she really wants to spend it with a new husband and family, but he goes on a trip to Boston. And now I'll stop doing that accent so our podcast listeners don't immediately turn this off. And it's her complaining with her mother and her friends about like, oh, I always wanted to celebrate with family, but we never really had a family, and now he's gone away, and what will I do? And then there's like a car crash, and we get our miracle in this one, where there was enough oil in the car to keep it warm for 1 hour, but it lasted for 8. Oh,
You're gonna see a lot like that. It's very lazy writing, but it works.
it
It gets
works.
the point
It's fine.
across.
It's fine.
And like the significance that
surface.
it's a holiday is just on the holidays you should skip work and be with your family. It's a classic, wonderful life.
Yeah. But not quite It's a Wonderful Life. More just
No,
like,
I'm just saying it's gesturing at that. The working on Christmas trope is so common for sitcoms. And then of course at the end they always say, you know what? I would rather be with my family, and then they come back together. I was interested in like, okay, so The Nanny by season 6 has just abandoned its premise entirely. It's no longer about a nanny in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, she is just married Mr. Sheffield
She's just
now.
a mother in a totally normal family in a house.
Yeah.
That has a butler because it was the 90s and you could get away with butlers in that time. Also, Ray Charles is there.
Yes. As like her mother's boyfriend.
In like his last fictional live action role that he ever did, it was this episode.
Really?
Because this was his last appearance on The Nanny, and then he didn't really do anything else. He was in the Blues Clues home video movie, the Blues Clues musical special.
Damn, go Ray Charles. Like, who knew?
Ray Charles, he did acting as well.
A multi-talented man.
And he plays Home for the Holidays, which could be construed as a secular sort of holiday song.
Yeah.
Even though it's clearly a Christmas song.
Yeah. Well, because there's no good Hanukkah songs, David. Ray Charles can't sing Civvy Bone.
All right, next up we've got the Even Stevens with
so now this one,
Shia LaBeouf.
This one we talked about this, I believe, in our Christmas special one, or we've definitely talked about it before.
If we did, I forgot about it, but it definitely has the same plot as most of our Christmas special.
Yeah, because
episodes.
It's literally just a Christmas story, or not a Christmas story. Oh my gosh,
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. It's basically just It's a Wonderful Life, where Shia LaBeouf's character accidentally breaks all the Hanukkah presents and gets grounded from Hanukkah, and he's like, oh, then my family'd be better off if I just was never born. And then turns out they just have a shitty bratty son instead who's like abusive to all of them and gets away with it somehow.
It's sort of a justifying the punching bag episode. I think this is kind of a trope where you've got Steven, or his name is not Steven. What is his name?
No, it's Lewis.
Lewis is his role in the family is to be the screw up,
right?
And to be the goofball that everyone is annoyed by. And whereas his older sister and older brother are huge successes in academics and athletics, respectively. But the joke is, if he wasn't there, then they would be the losers. And they would be the bottom, the
burnouts,
the tier. They'd be the burnouts, and they would get the shit. So I don't know. It's like,
it's a very strange
a justification
episode
for bullying your son? I
don't know. It's very strange, but again, it ends on the note of, you're not really grounded from Hanukkah. Come down, and there's like a magical grandma who fixes all the Hanukkah presents, so it's all okay in the end.
Yeah, I like that instead of an angel, it's the ghost of the great grand Bubby Rose.
Bubby Rose. Just clearly just a much younger woman in a horrible prosthetic old people makeup.
Right. So I mean, we definitely have in this episode, they do all the Hanukkah things.
Yeah.
But importantly, it's always in reference to Christmas. It's gesturing at Christmas, saying, well, we're going to have Christmas later,
Yeah.
And we're acknowledging that, and also we're gonna do a Christmas themed movie parody, but
Right. Like
it's Jewish now.
it's very strange. Um so that's Even Stevens, and that this now we're into 2000. So we're at the turn of the millennia.
Right.
We get this, and we get Friends, which everyone knows is the holiday armadillo episode.
Yeah, I didn't know about this.
You
I'm
didn't
not a
know
big
about the
Friends head. I'm not a
I mean,
Friends head.
I don't know that much about Friends, but even I knew about the holiday armadillo, where Ross is trying to teach his son about Hanukkah because he has him for the holidays this year. And, his son is disappointed that Santa isn't going to come visit. So at the last minute, he tries to get a Santa costume, but all they have is an armadillo. And so he's almost got him excited about Hanukkah and the Maccabees. And then Chandler comes in dressed as Santa. Wah wah. And then they have to work it out, and Santa's like, all right, you come sit with me and we'll both listen to the holiday armadillo talk about Hanukkah. And then of course Joey comes in dressed as Superman. And it's hijinks ensue.
So again, we have this thing of interfaith raising of children, which is particularly kind of a weird thing with Ross, because he like only sees his kid like once a season.
Right. Or like 3 times. We'll be generous.
That's being generous. The Dylan and Cole Sprouse kid of his, right? That's who it is,
them?
right?
No, it's not.
Yeah. No, it's
no
Zach
way.
and Cody. It's
is
Zach
it
and
really?
Cody. Yeah. Don't gaslight me.
What? Hold on, I have to look it up.
I mean, they were like every kid. They were also the kids for Big Daddy. Remember Big Daddy? Was that the name of the movie with Adam Sandler?
Yeah, okay, shit. It was them. They were Ben. Who knew?
Me. Yeah, so I mean, I guess again, we have this criticism of Hanukkah that it's not enough like Christmas, that it doesn't have the same natural magnetism of Santa and sleighs and these things. These are the things that make my mother's skin crawl, the idea that we need like a mascot or a Hanukkah Harry or a Hanukkah Bush
right.
or, any of these things to make a holiday meaningful, when the thing that should be meaningful is the traditions and the family. And that should be enough. Isn't that enough for you for you kids? And
wait, wrong holiday.
And of course, I never had a problem with that. I never felt Christmas envy. Did you?
No, not at all. But I think, by the time we were kids, I think Hanukkah had sort of evolved into more of a gift-giving holiday.
No, I mean, it was definitely, actually, the gift-giving begins way back in, like, the 19th century, in, like, the first big wave of Jewish immigrants.
But I didn't think it was so much, like, gift-giving, like, the way... I thought it was more just, like, Gelt and, like,
No, Gelt was actually an old German thing. They would give coins to the kids to give to their teachers.
Oh.
But I actually don't know when chocolate Gelt started. That was later. But I know that the present thing was sort of a reform Judaism thing in the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Again, to compete with Christmas. So it's not that you're wrong about that.
Yeah.
But what really like started to change in when we were growing up was getting it into schools, getting it onto TV, getting it into public broadcasting, trying to change the culture. It literally was kind of a war on Christmas. I mean, I don't want to, acknowledge that too much, but it was sort of a war on the idea that Christmas should be the only thing in secular spaces like schools.
Right. Absolutely. And I think we also, I think, were privileged enough to grow up in a pretty Jewish area, and that for a lot of people who grew up in more, not to say that it wasn't mainly a Christian dominated place where we grew up, because it certainly was. But for people who grew up where, the closest synagogue was a 30-minute drive away, and all the Jews from like the entire state came there, you know, like there are a lot less Jewish areas out there.
Right.
And I
I mean,
think
this is
they
another thing,
face,
is the movement of Hanukkah from the synagogue to the home,
yeah,
the domestication of Hanukkah. And,
yeah.
you know, in order to do that, you need something like presents, as like
Hmm.
something to graft the home onto it, and all these other traditions like the, you know, dreidling and whatnot. You need to bring it into the home and take it away from prayer and the
Right.
overt Judaism and religiosity of the holiday, and
Right,
secularize it a bit.
but and
And
I
that's
mean
why you
that's
need
the
an
other,
armadillo.
exactly, that's why you need the armadillo from Friends. So then we get a little bit of a gap, and then 2002 to 2003, there's just like a slew of Hanukkah content. Like it is just coming hot and furious off the presses. We get three movies and and an episode of the OC. So we get Eight Crazy Nights, the Disney Channel original movie Full Court Miracle, and the strangest movie, The Hebrew Hammer, which,
Right. The Hebrew Hammer was a parody of blaxploitation films done as a Jew-sploitation cop
right,
movie. Were you able to
right.
find this one?
No, but I had watched it previously. Someone at my Hillel in college had a like DVD copy of it, and we screened it.
All
I
right.
don't think it's very good
No,
personally.
no. I
It's not
mean,
entertaining. It's just kind of bad.
you know, when I said that Jewish humor is humor with the word Jew slapped on it, I mean, I think that's pretty much like the dictionary definition of it, is Hebrew Hammer.
Yeah. That or Spaceballs.
Right. But Eight Crazy Nights, I think, is the only real Hanukkah movie to be released
Yeah.
theatrically.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair statement to make. And
Yeah, and I
it's
think most
the
people,
worst.
it's the worst. And I think most people who have seen it at this point saw it when it would get shoved into Cartoon Network's lineup of holiday Christmas movies.
Really?
Yeah,
During the
that's where,
day or during Adult Swim?
no, it wasn't. It was like a censored version.
Heavily
Uh,
censored, I'm
yeah,
guessing.
yeah. It was definitely,
Jeez.
it was like sometime in that, like, it wasn't quite at Adult Swim yet, but it was there. And I think ABC
Late in the
Family
day.
maybe played it as part
Okay,
of their 25 Days of Christmas.
that
I
sounds
saw it
more
on
likely
both
than
channels. I've
oof.
seen it on both.
Okay, I believe you. I feel like I need to go look at that scheduling and be like, how did you not get so many complaints? Because this
Yeah.
movie is about an alcoholic dumping shit on an old man for an hour and a half and then saying,
Yes.
I'm really sorry, and then getting the girl.
Yep. And sort of embracing Hanukkah a little bit at the end, but like
Not
not
even
really.
really. Not
Not
even
even
really
that
relevant
much.
to the story. Hanukkah,
Yeah.
the 8 nights thing. It's not like there's a time limit at the end of Hanukkah or anything. It's just
God, why has no one made some like crazy fantasy Hanukkah movie where it's like Cinderella, where on the eighth night of Hanukkah, like everything crumbles or something? Like it's got a built-in timer. David, we need to write the next great Hanukkah movie.
right. Well, I mean, I've always I like Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins, which if you're watching the video is my background, where
It's a
they've
great.
sort of built in the 8 day time limit. You have to
Mm-hmm.
last 8 days in a haunted synagogue with a
Yeah.
bunch of goblins. I mean, that like just screams animated movie. But I
Oh
think
yeah.
Herschel is just too Jewish again for
Could
mass
they
consumption.
could they change it to like Harry or Henry, Hank and the Hanukkah Goblins? Or maybe, you
Uh,
know what? Screw it. Let's be a little Jewish with it. Let's I'm tired of all these half measures, you know?
right.
Like we get
Well,
the
I
OC
just think they don't
episode.
think like an old Jewish man from Russia is like much of a marketable character for kids.
I mean,
Um,
you just make it into like a kid version of Herschel. That's all you got to do. And then
all
it's
right,
fine.
all right.
It's the only
I'll
change.
pitch it. I'll pitch it to Illumination Studios, I guess.
Oh God,
Get
no.
some minions in there.
Just kidding. I take it all back. If it has to be Illumination Studios, I'll just animate it myself. It'll be better.
Is Blue Sky, the guys who did Ice Age, are they still a thing?
Oh, I have no idea.
They would do it. Come on.
They would.
Or are they now Sony ImageWorks? I don't know.
We'll get Dan Harmon's studio to do it in claymation. The Starburns Industry. We'll do it. All right. But we get a terrible episode of the OC called The Best Christmaka Ever, because there's a character who's a child of a Christian mother and a very Jewish father. And so he celebrates a new holiday called Christmaka, not just Hanukkah and Christmas. It's a new holiday altogether, and you smush it together, and that's what you get. And it's classic OC drama in the background. I don't think there's really any Hanukkah miracle.
There's a land deal.
Right. There's a land deal. There's, teenage drinking and shoplifting.
Right. But that's just normal OC stuff. The real Christmaka thing is that they're using Hanukkah. They're using an interfaith family and a child who celebrates both Christmas and Hanukkah as a metaphor for indecision in romance, because he's got two dates to the dance. Wait, no, of course it is. What do you mean?
I mean, it's sort of doing that, but it ends on the whole note about like, you're joining our family, Ryan, and like we make new traditions and we make the new tradition.
I mean, that's definitely there too. That's there for sure. I'm just saying, additionally, there's a theme that they're playing with where they keep saying Christmaka is about not having to make tough choices. Right. Christmaka is about getting the good and the great, the silver and the gold, make new friends and keep the old. And it's about dating two hot girls who have different personalities
who are into your interests and do really cool things for you. But you just can't decide, and so you decide to be friends with them, and neither of them want to be your friend. They just want to kiss you.
I guess that's like the best possible ending for that storyline, but it's not a good storyline in my mind. I just find it so obnoxious, the 2 dates to the prom, but even dragging it out even further, this like truce of who's allowed to date this amazing guy.
So incredible.
Is it okay? I don't know. Is it okay to go back to 8 Crazy Nights for a second?
Yeah, we can go back.
Yeah, I just feel like we glossed over it because it was such this like cultural landmark thing.
It was a thing.
I just really wanted to make it clear that also in 8 Crazy Nights, Dylan and Cole Sprouse are both in it.
What? Who do they play in 8 Crazy Nights?
There's this big song, because also the joke of 8 Crazy Nights is that the holidays have become really commercialized. Yeah. So there's a whole rhyme about the mall and how great it is, where they literally name drop all of their product placement one after another, and it's like footwear and Panda Express and come to Sears, and it's like, Jesus Christ, this is so on the nose. It's not funny.
Too on the nose.
Right. And then at the end of the movie, he's like drunk and he's hallucinating and he bursts into the mall and all of the mascots and logos of the different places come to life. And it's, I think, the KB Toys. Is that the name of that place that no longer exists anymore? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
So the KB Toys, like wooden soldiers, come to life, and they're Dylan and Cole Sprouse. So I wanted to make that clear. Also, there's this theme of basketball, which is Jews and basketball.
Jews fucking love basketball, man. I don't know what's up with it.
I mean, we always like tell the story that we like invented it or something, or we were the first professional basketball players.
I mean, there just were a lot of there's a lot of Jewish enthusiasm for it, but there's also a lot of Jewish enthusiasm for baseball. So like, I don't know. Jews just want to be included. Yeah. They just love to be included.
But Jews and basketball at the JCC, that's like a big thing.
That is.
I think both of our dads and my brother did JCC basketball at a time.
I think I did JCC basketball for like,
I think I did too.
One winter season.
Have blocked it from my memory.
You can't escape basketball as a Jewish youth.
Right.
You know, it's very fun living in Brooklyn. I often will go to my local park, which has a basketball court, and the two groups of people playing there are like local Black kids and the local Jewish kids. Like,
Right.
that's who's playing on the courts.
So basically, like Adam Sandler in Eight Crazy Nights, he's drunk because his parents died in a car accident and no one took care of him. Really, he
Yeah.
just went into foster homes, and then he lost touch with his, teen romantic interest, who then became a single mother. And so then the way that he reconnects with her is by playing basketball with her kid, and so it comes full circle, and that's
Yeah.
how he redeems himself. And then he really redeems himself when he, instead of running from the police to avoid prison time, he yells at everyone that they should be really nice to this basketball coach who everyone makes fun of because he's short and hairy and ugly and has one foot that's smaller than the other. And he talks in an Adam Sandler voice because he's played by Adam Sandler. And he lives with his sister, who is also voiced by Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
So that's how he redeems himself. And the film ends with a shot of this old man having a seizure because he's so happy that he won this patch that signifies that he's the most beloved man in town. All right. The point is, it's a nonsensical film. It was written in an afternoon, and there's a lot of shots of magical reindeer eating shit.
Yes. There's just so much poop in this movie. It's like absurd.
Yeah.
Frozen
poop, explosion, poop.
A lot of vomit too. Just like, it's so scatological. And I've just never been a fan.
We all remember 2002. Don't worry.
I mean, things are still scatological now, like
not like they were.
Not like close. It used to be.
Bad Santa 2? Are you kidding me? Not even close to Bad Santa 1. Anyway.
Anyway.
Continuing the theme of basketball and Jews, right?
And
that's
Hanukkah.
The real connective tissue that we're apparently seeing is Jew, Hanukkah, basketball. Full Court Miracle is Luck of the Irish, but with Jews.
Yeah, it's like weird Luck of the Irish. They just find a random Black dude who's good at basketball and was kind of pro, and these rich Jewish kids start paying him secretly, but then everyone finds out, and at first they're like, playing basketball, that means you won't be a doctor, how dare you? But then they decide to hire the nice Black man anyway, and they invite him to Shabbos dinner, and he eats gefilte fish and asks for milk. Not kosher.
I told my brother the plot of this movie, and he literally didn't believe me that it exists because it sounds made up as a premise, that it's all of these it's all of these Jews at an Orthodox
yeshiva
at a
yeshiva
in Philadelphia, and they meet a UVA grad. My brother is also a UVA grad who loves basketball. My brother loves basketball, and the UVA grad is trying out for the 76ers, which is my brother's team.
Yeah,
he's trying out for them.
He wants to, but he had knee surgery, and so he doesn't know if he'll be able to do it.
And he's also homeless, in addition to his nervousness. He's living out of his van until it's time for him to come in. And so there's a whole thing of, we got to get him a house, and we got to get him, a job, and we got to, fake all this paperwork. And it's
very
all
bizarre.
because he is a miracle. He's a Hanukkah miracle.
He's the reincarnation of Judah Maccabee.
Right. Well, at first they think he's the ghost of Judah Maccabee. His name is Lamont Carr, and his nickname was the Hammer. And he has
He's
a
got
license plate
4
that says
brothers.
JM165, which is like the year that the war ended and
Oh,
Judah Maccabee's initials. And he
conspiracy.
has the right number of
Oh,
brothers. But it's all fucking pointless. The point
yeah.
is just that he's a professional basketball player who they met and then paid $20 to coach their basketball team.
But they have to keep paying him $20 and they help him fix
Right.
his car and blah blah blah. And of course, there's the grumpy mom doctor who's like, you have to be a doctor. And there's the mean secretary who's like, no basketball in the hallways. But they all come around at the end, and there's a girl sort of involved, but not really.
Not really. She just kind of leaves and then comes back
Yeah.
with no incentive to. But there's a
Yeah.
miracle in that he tries out for the 76ers and he makes it, but then his car breaks down on the day of the big game. But it's both his big game and the kids' big game, right?
No,
So
I think it's after his big
it's
game.
after his big game, but still during the kids' big game.
Right, and
And
there's
his
a
car breaks
thunderstorm
down. Right. Lightning strikes his car.
or
And God
something.
himself decrees, you must coach this children's basketball team full of
Yeah.
white Jewish kids. and and so then the mom finally accepts that his son wants to be a basketball player and brings the hammer back to finish coaching the final game.
Right, but the miracle is that, they're playing the big bullies from the beginning who kick their butt and are like, haha, you'll never make it to the finals. And lo and behold, they've made it to the finals. And the power goes out and there's a backup generator. And they're like, okay, when the backup generator goes out, then we'll call the game there, no matter who's ahead. And we get a second miracle of there's only enough oil in the generator for 1 more minute, but it lasts 8 more minutes and they get to finish the basketball game and they win. Hooray!
This is honestly my favorite of those kind of miracles for these episodes, though.
Yeah,
I mean, it's delightful. The lights stayed on for the basketball match,
yeah.
even though they were trying to run out the clock with their evil timeout.
Evil timeout. But so my favorite character from this one was definitely the rabbi, who I guess is also like the history teacher question mark.
Yeah, they're understaffed at yeshivas,
I guess. But so he's just like, oh yeah, you guys found a basketball coach? All right, I can make this work, just totally scheming with these children, and fully on board with making this basketball team his highest priority at the yeshiva. Just found that delightful. I don't know.
Right. So believe it or not, we're like almost done.
Yeah.
It feels like we should just I mean, I know we've been talking for a while, but it feels like we've covered like no episodes so far.
I know.
But we're like almost finished with all the episodes that are explicitly about Christmas, or at least have like the A plot is a Christmas thing.
Or Hanukkah.
Hanukkah related. Even I'm doing it.
Yeah, but, so we get a brothers and sisters episode from 2006.
Does anybody remember this? It was a drama. It was
Sally Fields was nominated for an Emmy for this show. I don't know if she won.
But do people remember it?
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. She was nominated for an Emmy, and I don't think anyone remembers this.
I also just think the irony of the flying nun being the Jewish grandmother is somewhat palpable. I guess ABC dramas can just exist for 5 seasons and then no one remembers them. I guess that's just a thing.
But do they normally get nominated for Emmys? That's all I'm saying.
Well, 2006 was a time of dead culture. I think. When was the writers' strike?
Well, that was 2008, wasn't it? That was a couple years later.
Okay, so you can't blame it on that. But it was a bad time for television.
Anyway. So this one, we find out that, it's a lot of just CW, ABC family drama stuff where, a young daughter has diabetes and is So grandma's mom was Jewish, so doesn't that make us Jewish technically?
So should we be praying to Jewish God instead of regular God? And should we be celebrating Hanukkah instead of Christmas?
Right. And the whole reason she's like, should we be praying to a different God is because she got diabetes, which is like, yikes, this is rough. Someone needs to talk to this child about how things work.
And so they Sally, do. They have a big speech at the end. The like Jewish uncle is like, you know, we've lost a lot this year, but Judaism teaches us to accept whatever obstacles are placed in front of us, faith in God, but also faith in family and learning and in each other and in ourselves, and then we can live and the oil will burn on.
Huzzah, huzzah.
And there's another fucking land deal, just like in the OC. There's
another. Dramas love land deals, David. Did you not watch enough Dallas?
Right?
Yeah, it's all.
Did they originate the land deal as the center of drama? Is that where it comes from?
They must have. It's that whole drama, you know. It's like you're a mogul. Well, what are you a mogul in? Well, we don't know a lot of things, but land seems basic enough. You know, just a lot of land deals. But anyway, the the issue is also that the one brother went through a drug addiction and needs to go back to being a doctor in Iraq, but doesn't want to or something.
He needs to get clean before he can go back to Iraq. Okay. So he's fighting in court to get a 3-month stay on his, being drafted out of the reserves, because he had already served in Afghanistan, and that was what drove him to drug addiction. And he doesn't want to go back until he's clean. So his brother, who's a lawyer, who's played by Philip from The Americans, he's arguing in court, that he should get that extra stay. And then they lose the court battle, but then they win the moral battle. Their arguments swayed the heart of Army. Army cares.
Army cares. U.S. military industrial complex cares.
Yeah, I think it's pretty standard drama stuff, but I think, the key to that has nothing to do with the Hanukkah subplot. It's really, Hanukkah subplot is about, Sally Field going too far with pushing Jewishness on her granddaughter, or
just being being too enthusiastic, and it's calm down, our daughter just wanted to know about some Hanukkah stuff, and you're reading Torah to her. What the fuck? And it's well, I mean, that's I agree, you introduce things in stages, but I don't think it was
just do whatever people want to do, and if you don't know what your kid wants, just do what you want to do and what you think is best. I don't think it's that complicated. Hard. You have to do a whole subplot about it, but it was during a time when people were still being hey, wait, what about the Jews?
Yeah, this one was very much a, hey, wait, what about the Jews? But it was also a sort of thing where it's do we really have to be Jewish? We're not really Jewish.
Right, we're secular humanist. We're what all TV is. Nobody's really religious, but everyone is kind of religious, and everyone is somewhat secular, but not too secular. It's in this weird dance of television where you can't offend anybody.
Yeah, I mean,
there weren't a lot of atheists on TV, out and out atheists, but there also weren't a lot of evangelical Christians,
sure,
biblical literalists, or
yes, not a lot of biblical literalists, but it's just that, casual Christian hegemony of TV.
Right. It defaulted to sort of secular Christianity.
Yeah.
And then when there's Judaism, it defaults to secular Judaism because it's TV, and you just don't want anybody who's that spooky, scary, orthodox. Orthodox people are scary.
Talking about God in your sitcom, man. It harshes the vibe.
It
It
does
harshes
harsh the
the
vibe
vibe.
for some people, and it's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
pushing something on my children who are watching
Yeah.
this show for some reason. But the only orthodox characters that I really do see are this one really stereotyped, awful stereotype of an orthodox person in the League.
Oh God.
My
Yeah.
brother
This
watches the
was
League. I think that it might be watchable if you are really into fantasy football. And if you
I
don't know what
mean,
fantasy football is, like me, the dialogue is inscrutable and the characters are all loud and obnoxious.
I think even as someone who does have a sense of what like fantasy football is and, has known people who have played and had conversations about it, it's still just like hot garbage and just like it just seems like one of those edgy shows that's like how offensive can we be?
Right. I
Like
mean, I
that's like
like
half the joke of
Nick.
that.
I like Nick Kroll most of the time. I
Most of the
normally
time,
find
not
him funny.
here.
But also we're just watching one episode out of
Yeah.
100. So it's we're on season 5 of the show. Maybe this is a lull. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but this is like a
Yeah.
really unfunny episode where Nick Kroll is trying to get Jason Mantzoukas to be Jewish because his son, who's estranged from him, loves Jason Mantzoukas and will do whatever he does. But in order to get him to be Jewish, he convinces Jason Mantzoukas that he has to convert to Judaism in order to have sex with Nick Kroll's sister, who is Orthodox.
But it works.
And then it works. And there's a lot of jokes about circumcision, and there's jokes about being kosher, and there's jokes about working on the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all pretty anti-Semitic, but playfully sort of self-referentially anti-Semitic in that very Nick Kroll way.
Yeah. This one's also not really Hanukkah-y. It's like Christmas. There's a Christmas pageant, but there's like nothing really explicitly like Hanukkah that happens in there, except that
they
mention it like twice.
They're celebrating Hanukkah at the time that the episode takes place, and there's this Orthodox Jewish character, who is who is there.
Yeah, that's about it for Hanukkah in the League.
Right, but again, we have this thing of children, shared custody, interfaith marriages, struggle over the next generation that we must keep them Jewish, keep them aware of their Judaism, as if that doesn't just always happen, as people get older.
Well, because it doesn't always happen.
I mean, everybody like learns about it. Like everyone knows what Hanukkah is. They can Google it. It's not difficult.
Right. But
the idea
like
that they celebrate it and that they associate that with their childhood. That's what we're fighting over. Not like whether they know the story, but whether they internalize it.
Yeah.
They accept their Jewish identity. Because they are a battle of identities.
Yeah.
I don't know what my point is, but
okay.
I think there's something there.
Well, I mean, the only 2 episodes on this list that are not about that battle of identities necessarily, where just everyone is Jewish the whole
only
time.
Non-interfaith couple.
Yeah, is the Goldbergs. We get the Goldbergs. They're just Jewish.
So kind of comes full circle to the first Jewish family on TV, and then the last Jewish family. Maybe not the last.
They're both the Goldbergs, though.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
I know. So the first one, this one is very much like there's no such thing as a Hanukkah bush. Shit, what the fuck is the name of that book? Sorry.
Yeah, take your time. I've never read this book.
I've never read it. I just know. Title. That's what it is. So this episode of the Goldbergs is very much like there's no such thing as a Hanukkah bush, Sandy Goldstein. And they literally have like a Hanukkah bush in this episode where, the mom is like, we're doing family wrong. No one likes doing Hanukkah. Oh no.
Right. It's about
It's
Christmas
not like
envy.
Christmas. Yeah. It's very much Christmas
Right.
envy.
But it's also, there's like a class element to it where they're jealous largely because it seems like these other families have a lot of wealth to like fling
Spend.
at the holidays, and
Right.
they're operating on a budget. But I don't know. There's nothing subversive about it. It's just, look,
Yeah.
we're going to do all the Christmas traditions and then call them Hanukkah things. We're going to have Hanukkah Harry, a Hanukkah bush, Hanukkah socks instead of stockings hung on the mantle.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Tinsel
and
and lights and all that.
right. And then it becomes, okay, the grandfather comes in and says, this is terrible, this is offensive to your ancestors, this I'm here to make you feel guilty,
Yeah.
which that's the true meaning of the holiday, is guilting someone into following traditions that they no longer find enjoyable. Great. That's Judaism in a nutshell, isn't it?
I mean, I would disagree. But we have different relationships to Judaism.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that's certainly a cultural understanding that this show is pushing.
Sure. Um, yeah, but I mean, he it all sort of falls apart, and in the end we find out that the perfect Christian family, it was not a perfect holiday there either. And the mom is like, okay, I should appreciate what I do have and the traditions that are special to my family. But I think maybe figuring out that maybe I don't give my kids raisins, maybe I do give them gifts that they actually are
They
interested in.
want.
Yeah.
Right. And it's there's other things in there, like, of course they watch the movie The Christmas Story every year because that's their tradition, even though
Mm-hmm.
they are Jewish. So there is some, like, the culture of Christmas is more powerful than the culture of Hanukkah
Yeah.
in the childhood memory of these characters who are written by, you know,
Jews.
written by Jews who have memories of not really giving that much of a shit about Hanukkah. Nor should they. Hanukkah is not the biggest Jewish holiday. It's
No.
a minor one. It just happens to coincide with the month that Christmas is in. Which is why the next episode is also about fighting to get Hanukkah into schools. It's the war
Yeah.
on Christmas again.
Yeah.
It's called Hanukkah Solo because it is both about Star Wars and about singing a solo in the school Christmas choir holiday. What do you call
Pageant.
it?
Holiday
Winter
pageant.
pageant.
Yeah.
There's no good Hanukkah songs.
I mean, this was always a bother of mine, I will say. As someone who sang a lot of Latin Catholic choral arrangements in high school, and knowing that there were some beautiful Hebrew arrangements of great prayers, and just never having that even considered as something to bring in, for a holiday concert.
Right.
Like, it is, you're really left with a couple of small general holiday songs. There's the
Right.
classic Let It Snow,
Yeah.
and then you get like maybe the dreidel song, or like one sort of like folkloric Jewish chant that someone's like, this is fun, we'll sing this, and that's about it. And you never sing Jewish songs at any other time of year. And
Right.
so
This
it
is
does
not
feel
that.
like this is the chance. This is not that. But
This
I
is a
will
big
say,
straw man of what you're talking about.
right.
It's a huge straw man where they're just saying, like, all right, oh, so you're saying you don't want to sing the dreidel
The
song
dreidel
every
song.
year? Then that means that what you want is that there's no Christmas songs whatsoever, and we have to rewrite all the Christmas songs as secular songs, such as Secular Night and Oh Wintertime and
Mm-hmm.
Here Comes Uncle Doug instead of Here Comes Santa Claus. So, total straw man, not based on anything.
Yeah.
Total war
Yeah.
on Christmas narrative. So stupid. And then they are like, okay, well, maybe the kids can compose a Hanukkah song. And it's like, no, that's also
No.
stupid. Kids can't compose shit. They're bad at songs.
One of them does write a Hanukkah rap.
Right. Uh, and then the B plot is that the nerdy kid, he watches the Star Wars holiday special and he realizes that Star Wars is terrible, which it is. And then
Oh
he
my
watches
God.
Howard the Duck and realizes that George Lucas is terrible, which he is.
Yeah.
But then he rediscovers his love for kitsch media, which is good because all kitsch media, including Star Wars and Howard the Duck, is actually good.
Yeah. So he
So
basically just
that's
went
the
through
truth.
the 5 stages of a YouTube media critic in like a half an hour, which is great.
Is that a term? The 5 stages of being a YouTube critic? Because
It is now. I've just invented it.
I would very much like to do an episode on that sometime in the future because that's
Absolutely.
definitely a real thing and
Yeah,
definitely is worth talking about.
totally.
But that's the Goldbergs, right?
Yeah, and that's our whole list of Hanukkah
Yeah, I
episodes.
mean, of course, there are other episodes that mention it. There are other episodes that feature it heavily. There's an Elena of Avalor episode that I was not going to
Oh,
watch because it's Elena of Avalor. There was
what's with the hate for Elena
I
of
don't know.
Avalor?
It's just very young children for very very young children,
All
younger
right.
than
Right,
Blue's
like
Clues age.
right. That's what I would say is that even though Rugrats features babies, it was definitely a show that was enjoyed by people who were older than
It
babies.
was written by like
Um
Simpsons writers, right? I mean,
right.
like by people who knew what adults find funny.
Right. So, it was more along the lines, it was aired at the same time as your SpongeBob's and
Sure.
Rocket Powers and whatever.
Right.
But like a lot of early education holiday material does sort of exist, but those are very simplistic. They're all usually very kitschy, very educational in their intent,
Right.
as opposed to just pure entertainment value for either the whole family or an older audience.
Right. Now, I mean, a lot of these episodes still get featured in like the holiday episode advertisements while I was watching episodes on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
The OC episode um, and the Goldbergs episodes were all featured in the Christmas
Holiday.
episode advertisement for Hulu and then for
Mm-hmm.
HBO Max and then for all these different places that they want to advertise. We have holiday specials for everybody,
Right.
including also the Jews.
Yeah.
So they still have cultural relevance to some extent, but really they found that a better strategy for marketing episodes for people to actually watch is to just have a token Jewish character who in one
Mm-hmm.
shot lights a menorah to show that
Yep.
you're not excluding anyone on purpose.
Right.
And then
It's just the
the
main
rest of your
characters
characters,
aren't
right.
Jewish. So, of course, they do Christmas.
Right. So, I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, I like the way that Community does it, where literally everyone celebrates Christmas, but everyone also has their own shtick.
I don't
You
know.
hate it.
I feel like the way Community does it is a little bit lazy personally, but I also just find that the characterization of Annie as Jewish just falls flat because it's never brought up outside of like very specific contexts. And like
I
there's
mean, not
nothing
everyone's
casually
Jewish. Not everyone's
I
overtly
know.
Jewish all the
I
time.
know, but like she's not even a little bit casually Jewish. It's just like I'm only Jewish when it comes to like Hanukkah or Shirley trying
My
to convert
grandmother.
me. Like,
Right. Well, okay, fair enough, I guess. I don't know that this is something I would bother getting
I
critical
don't think
about.
the show needs to get canceled. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's a great representation of Jewish people in
Okay.
media. That's all.
I guess I'm just saying if that's what we're going to get for the most part when it comes to
Yeah, it's
Hanukkah
a lot
as a
of tokenism.
representation is tokenism.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not that miffed about it.
I
I could
don't
take
love
it or
it.
leave it.
I don't love it, but you know, I'm too jaded to expect anything more.
I mean,
Is the
I think
reality.
honestly, it's better than having sort of half-assed Hanukkah episodes that just end up referencing Christmas.
Yeah.
Because the point is, Hanukkah is a holiday, but it's a really easy to celebrate one. It asks very
Yeah.
little of you. You just light some candles, you eat some delicious fried foods,
Mm-hmm.
and then you say like one prayer and then you're
Yeah,
done.
you're done.
It's
That's it.
nothing.
It's
The
very simple.
story, the story is
Kind
not
of
like a
fun.
Bible story. It's, it's a post-Bible story, which makes it
Right.
sort of secondary to like the
Yeah.
really religious ones. God
It's
shows up
a
just a little bit at the end.
right. It's not it's more of a war story. So you think there would
Right.
be like the sort of that would be a hook for it more so is the
You'd
fact
think
that,
so, but
it's an
as it
underdog war
as it
story.
happens, there are just other wars that people would rather make stories about. More biblical.
Like World War II. We need 100 more movies about that.
Right, but I'm just saying nobody wants to make a Judah Maccabee movie, really. Nobody's that interested in this particular story.
Well, I think, there's not a huge consumer appetite because the consumer appetite is Christian and it's it's not interested. Jews
Right.
are
I
not a
mean,
huge
I think it's
demographic.
I think it's coming from both ends. I think that, Jews who are writing in Hollywood today don't really want to write a Hanukkah movie either. I don't think that's on the top of their priority list.
No, I don't think that's necessarily the top of anyone's priority list. However, I think, there is it's just that the Jewish community is so small.
Right,
like
but we're big in
pop
Hollywood,
we are big in Hollywood.
we have stories about Judaism told in
Yes.
Hollywood. I mean, the Seth Rogen pickle movie or whatever, very recent example.
Right.
And he's a very Herschel figure.
Apostrophe.
Yeah, I don't know. Just how about Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins? I'm gonna pitch it again.
Seth Rogen cast as Herschel of Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins, and he get all his terrible comedian friends to play all the goblins, and it'll be great. And there'll be a sexy goblin, and it'll be perfect.
Okay, maybe not a sexy goblin.
No, David. If we're casting Seth Rogen, there's gonna be a sexy goblin. I don't think that's negotiable. It's in his contract.
I just, we can do things. We can make stories. We can use Hanukkah. It's not a worthless holiday, but it's always going to be playing second fiddle to Christmas.
Yeah,
that's just an eternal thing.
Yeah,
and including the fact that we're doing a Hanukkah episode, and next week we'll probably do a Christmas one. So.
All right.
If we missed your favorite Hanukkah episode or your favorite representation of a holiday that's not Christmas, tweet at us at Talking Tropes. We want to hear it, really.
Yeah.
Because we might do a Kwanzaa episode next year. We might do all the Kwanzaas next year.
We'll do all of them. All 10 of them, probably, if this list is anything to go off of. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. I hope you and your families are having safe, socially distant, and joyous holidays despite the global pandemic that is still raging around us. Sorry to end on a bummer note, but 2020 is almost
Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. See you next time.
Bye.